Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Movies and Beyond. You may have noticed that things are a bit different. That's because I'm on location over here at Performing Arts Studio West. Now, of course, I usually do it with Devon, who's in the audience today, but I am going to be I'm going to be interviewing Hannah. What's your last name?
Cruz.
Hannah Cruz. And yeah, I got a few questions for you.
Great.
So we just watched her short film. For those of you who don't know, Hannah Cruz is the dance teacher over here at Performing Arts Studio West. But recently, you directed your short film.
Yeah.
And what's it called?
It's called Jam.
Okay,
like,
Jam.
The peanut butter and jelly, but it's jam. Yeah.
Peanut butter jelly time. Yes. And I
have a question for you to begin with.
Okay.
You just saw it for the first time.
Did.
What were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts, you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Words cannot express how I feel about that film, but you, like I said, you did an amazing job. And I was a part of it too.
Yeah, it's true.
And
it's true. I got a pretty big role.
Thank you. And I was also going to say this, your directing style and how you wanted everything to go was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
You know, and that's really good.
Cool.
Yeah, you're also a great dance teacher.
Thank you. Yeah, I do a lot of different things at once. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get the ball rolling, shall we?
Yeah.
With some questions. First one. How does it feel to direct something for the first time in the short amount of time we had?
That's a great question, Tyron. Wow. So this was my first time directing a short film. I knew that I could do it because I've worked on a lot of different short films. I've been an assistant director before, so I'm very intimately familiar with what a director's job on set ends up being. This Jam is based on a story that I also wrote it. So it's based on, it's like a short version of a story that I've been writing since 2021, so about 4 years now.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I took the characters from a totally different story, and I thought, what if I put them in this thriller suspense category, right? What if I took these characters that I'm really familiar with? They're my favorite characters to write for. What if I took them out of the old story and put them in a new story? And because I've been working for so long on it, and I've been so specific about how I want it to look and how I want it to go, even in the old story, I knew that going forward, I would be able to make the right choices for the new story. So yeah, it was I think I was sort of prepared by all the other work that I'd done in this project. I don't know if I would have found it as natural if I hadn't written it as well. Part of me is I don't understand how people who don't write things end up directing them, because I know where all the story comes from, and I know what the intention is behind everything because I wrote it.
You have a vision of what you want in your film.
Yeah, exactly. And I have the vision that I wrote it for, so it feels, I shouldn't say easy, it wasn't easy at all, but it feels very natural to go, okay, well, I'm going to tell you how the story goes now, because I was already doing that through the writing. So it was both easier and more difficult than I thought it was going to be. The time crunch I knew was going to be one of our biggest battles. You have to do it in 6 days. You can only this year the time was only from April 1st to April 6th.
And that's a very short time.
It's a very short period of time. For context, I mean, I'm just trying to think like TV shows sometimes take a year to shoot, right? Or even features or things like that often take 2 or 3 months. So to be able to do this from start to finish is what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to do all of pre-production and production and post-production in those 6 days is really, really quite an ordeal. But I think probably the most The directing itself was maybe the easiest part, quote unquote. I think figuring out the logistics of how are we going to get to the locations, what are we going to eat when we get there. I think doing the producing stuff for this one and switching between the hats. So sometimes, sometimes I'm being a director and I'm just looking out for directory things. And then all of a sudden we're having a problem over here, I don't know, on set or whatever. And I have to switch off my director's hat and put on my producer's hat and be like, okay, I have to work with the logistics of the film right now. So I think the switching hats was the most difficult part. Getting the edit was also really, really tough. I'm very perfectionist. So I feel not totally satisfied with where the edit ended up because we only had one day to do the edit because it ended up being so much film footage that it took a long time to download.
Wow. Imagine editing for one day.
Yeah. So essentially we had to take, I don't even know how many hours or how many different shots we got, but let's assume, I know there's 11 scenes. Let's assume per scene we have 3 shots, 11 of them. I have to take 33 different videos essentially.
Yeah.
And in a period of 12 hours, cut the exact right parts of those videos. There was actually a little blooper that we saw in this one. Sorry. It's an older version of it. I have to take the exact perfect part of each of those and sometimes multiple perfect cuts. And I have to make it look like, I don't know, normal, like real life and real TV and things like that. So I would say probably the most difficult parts were the editing and deciding what was staying and what had to go, and the switching hats. And then I think probably, sort of like the just getting to sit into like the characters and talk about the acting and talk about what the characters were feeling and talk about what I wanted to see in the shot versus not seeing the shot. Those were probably the easier, more enjoyable parts for me.
Yeah, that's amazing, Hannah. And next question. Who or what inspired you to direct your first short film?
Oh, wow. These questions are so good, Tyran. So I think honestly, I wouldn't have ever been interested in filmmaking or directing if I hadn't always wanted to be an actor. I found acting first. I didn't even know filmmaking was a thing, but when I was in high school, I started to learn acting. I loved it. I did a lot of musical theater, which makes sense because I'm a dance teacher. So I just love acting. I love stepping into other people's shoes and kind of like getting to live in that way. It just feels like the thing I was put on this earth to do. And because I want to be an actor, a lot of times as an actor, as an artist, or a lot of times these days as a musician, almost any other kind of artist, you have to create your own content. You have to create your own work. So for this one, I knew that if I wanted to be in a movie or a film that was the role that I wanted to play, I was going to have to like do it myself. And I also knew because of my experience and where I went to school that I could probably pull it off. In terms of like direct influences to the theme of the film, or like the way that the film is cut together, or why there's so much silence, or like why there's like some strange cuts back and forth to like images that don't necessarily make sense. So
I do have a question about that.
Yeah.
Because as you just pointed out, I did watch the film.
Yeah.
And I noticed there was just silence at a few parts.
Yeah.
Was that intentional, or was that done on purpose?
Yeah. So I would say 90% of the time, yes, it's intentional. The other 10% is because I have to edit it in a day, and I literally didn't. It's sort of like when you have to submit homework at midnight. You know what I mean? Like it was literally like I just didn't get some of those pieces. But I think there would have been, where there was just total silence, there would have just been kind of like nature noises as well. I think a lot of times in film and TV, there's a lot more talking than there needs to be. Because like while a podcast is a verbal or an audio medium, right? With film, we have the opportunity to tell the entire story with pictures, essentially. So, and especially considering it was the eerie, like thriller suspense part. You know how when I don't know if anybody here has experienced this, but I feel like sometimes if you're like hiking, if you're in a forest, if you're in nature, or even if you're just in your house, and all of a sudden you notice the quiet, gets a little creepier. You know what I mean? Like if you're like
Yeah,
hiking
I
and you're
had
like,
those
oh wait,
moments.
it's like I'm the only one here and it's really quiet. I think that gets you to like pay attention to the small things.
Yeah,
Also, maybe this is just because I have ADHD and
I can relate.
silence helps me focus on things. Um, but I think also just the my main inspiration stylistically for this is this Czech filmmaker. His name is Jan Svankmajer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, his name is Jan Svankmajer. He is a filmmaker from the he is actually still alive today, but he started making films in the late 50s, early 60s.
Mm.
Sort of in a surreal, like in a surrealist style. He uses a lot of like textural sounds. So like the sound
Yeah,
of like what do your hands sound like when they're like moving a piece of fabric, or like
yeah,
what does your mouth sound like when you're eating? And something about that is just like kind of disturbing. There's
yeah.
something that's just like, oh, I'm like all of a sudden super aware of things I wouldn't be super aware of.
True, but also to add on to it,
Yeah,
because I'm a movie person, movie buff,
yeah,
however you want to call it, and I pay very close attention to the film,
yeah,
to the film itself, and sometimes when they do those silent moments, as you just described,
yeah,
I'm like, that's done artistically. There's a reason why it's done.
yeah,
Because I watched an interview and someone said, and I quote, most of that is done on purpose.
yeah,
There's a reason
exactly.
for that.
Yeah, exactly. And also I think a lot of times in like horror and other things like that, we'll hear the sound drop out. Sometimes you'll hear like a ringing in ears.
Yeah,
Because a lot of times when we're going through like the scariest moments or things like that, like you don't even like you're not even paying attention to what you're hearing. You're
yeah.
just paying attention to what you're seeing because what you're seeing is so crazy. So I think it kind of helps director focus. I think it, I don't know, kind of increases the suspense part of the genre.
Yep.
And anyways, yeah, that's inspired by this Czech filmmaker, Jan Svankmajer, who does a lot of stop motion and he uses a lot of textural noises and silence in his films. We're back.
We're back. Hey, that's my night. We're back. We're back. We're back, people. We're back with Hannah Cruz, the director of Jam. And I got one last question to ask him. What were the challenges you faced while on set?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can talk about this forever because it was very difficult to make. I think it's something that I want to like highlight sort of is like how much work it takes to make even a bad film. Like, I've like, I'm proud of what we did. And also I see all the little flaws.
Yeah.
And like the way that I didn't have any time in my schedule to even like eat for like the whole week that I was doing that, and the amount of like, the stress of trying to make sure everything came together at the right time.
Yeah.
It's like even to make something that looked horrible, sounded horrible, and this one didn't, but even if it had, like it's just so much work. I think the things that made the filming process the most difficult was right off the bat, I knew that we needed to work on at a faraway location. So ideally, what saves the most money or what's the easiest thing is, I mean, if you can make a film in the spaces that you already exist in, that's easiest. To go in the middle of nowhere, to go into the forest, to go into the mountains, we ended up going about an hour and a half
Which, by the
away.
way, they're beautiful locations.
Yeah. I know, right? I know. I'm so thankful to our director of photography, Adam Kahn,
Yes.
for helping me bring out the beauty from behind the camera. But we knew that if we were going to be an hour and a half away, all right, to begin with, you have to factor in 3 hours of travel time to your day.
Yeah.
And we really try to keep a day under 12 hours. A 12-hour day is already too much. Like a 12-hour day
crazy.
for a work day is like, most people work a 9 to 5 job. That's what, 8 hours?
About 8 hours.
To assume that the goal is to work a 12-hour day, is crazy. So right off the bat, you have to travel in factor in travel time. You have to factor in the way that people are getting there. You know, if people don't drive or if people don't want to drive, how are we transporting them there? Beyond that, then you also realize you're working in a spot that has no electricity. So cameras and stuff, electricity requires power. And so either you have to only work with batteries or you have to have a generator to plug things into. So we had to figure out, okay, how are we going to light this and how are we going to charge the batteries for the camera? Because the batteries for the camera get used up every couple of hours because it's a really high powered camera, right? So you have the power issue. We had to make sure there were bathrooms, of course.
Oh, yeah. That's important.
And it's the middle of the forest, guys. It's really hard to find a place with bathrooms. So you have to factor in the travel time. And then I think the fourth thing is like, just stylistically, I knew that I wanted to put a table in the middle of a forest. That was like an image that I had very early on with this. And we found a table that looked really, really cool. And looked perfect for like the medieval kind of princess Renaissance kind of vibe. But it was like, I couldn't even tell you how many pounds this table was. Like this table was one of the heaviest things I've ever lifted in my life. We had to have 4 people carry it from a U-Haul truck, like on their shoulders into the middle of the forest. So just like the process of doing that takes time. So it's always, you're watching your time, you're watching your money. You're making sure that people stay happy. Exactly. So I think like the physical difficulty of that also kind of increased. You know, if costumes got dirty or anything, it wasn't like there was a sink around that we could like wash things off. We had to make sure it's not like we could just get the food from the store because we were an hour and a half away. We were literally in the middle of the San Gabriel Mountains. Wow. And also, this time constraint is like, even if you have the time to do it for one day, do we have the time to get all of it before it hits April 6th? So I think knowing that we just had to get the stuff, and even if it wasn't perfect, you know, and same thing with like our time in the studio ended up being pretty restricted. Just you know, constrained to the hours of the studio, and that's always, you have to work with actor schedules, you have to work with the schedules of the locations that you're in. So time not being our friend in that way too. We had to move that really heavy table. And I just want to say I stand by that table. It was a really good table. It was freaking perfect. And I got it for free off of Facebook Marketplace.
Nice.
Because I told the guy we were doing it for the Disability Film Challenge. And he said, oh, well, like I'll donate this table, which is awesome and a cool thing that I learned. So yeah, I think other than just the production difficulties of putting together a movie, the location aspects and the time aspects, just like put it over the top. And like, again, like even if you have all the budget in the world, I've worked on productions where we have, you know, millions of dollars a day to spend on what we're doing. I worked on 911. That's a huge budget show. I've worked on some really big budget films. And even when you have like millions of dollars a day, it is so difficult to get all the things that you need to get done in a way that's safe, in a way that's on time, in a way that's, I don't know, comfortable, in a way that like makes a good movie. You know what I mean? Like to get all the pieces to fit together at once, even when you have $1 million and all the time in the world, or 5 million or however much, 250 million, I think, is the average like Marvel movie budget. It's still really hard to do these things. So when you don't have any money at all, because we were trying to do this it's one of the requirements of the film challenge that you don't pay for much. You can pay, I think, a little bit for equipment. But everybody has to be volunteer. You're not supposed to spend much money on it. Like, to do that and to still make a good film at the end of the day, it feels practically impossible. So I'm proud that it exists. The movie exists at all. I want to take some more time to get a second edit beyond this film festival. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it was worth it because the story is about the idea for the characters and the story that I've been working on for the past 4 years was created by Samantha Golden Raskin, she plays the princess in the film. She plays the the blonde curly haired girl.
Wonderful actress.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's really, really great. So she wanted this idea. She wanted us to write a story about a princess who had autism. Because we don't have a lot of media examples of that. I mean, think of all the Disney princesses. We don't have anybody who's disabled, and not autism specifically. And just there's so many people out there. I'm like maybe sort of have to take a test to see if I'm on the spectrum or not. But like so many people out there, have that experience of life, and I don't know. I think we have a really long history of, I don't know, this sort of prejudice against people with, disabilities, especially things like autism and things like that. And I think by showing stories that are like, hey, this is what it's like to experience the world this way. This is what it's like to, these people are real people too. Yeah. And they have the same, feelings and life experiences a lot of the time. I think that's an important story to tell, because when we hear a story that feels like our own experience, it makes us feel less alone. I think maybe that's not to get too deep, but the meaning of life is to find community.
That's the whole point of it.
Yeah. So it was worth it just because, I mean, obviously the Disability Film Challenge is just cool to begin with. We're just kind of raising awareness for lots of different disabilities, and check out the other films as well online. Because I think there's maybe 50 or something other people who submitted things.
I've heard that, and that's insane.
Yeah, definitely. And it all has to be under 5 minutes. That's the other thing that I didn't. Oh, that was the real challenge in terms of editing, which is that the version that we actually just saw was 7 minutes and 41 seconds, which had most of the things that I wanted to include in it. The final version of it has to be under 5 minutes. And so 2 minutes, while it doesn't sound like a lot, is actually a ton of material to cut out. So, and again, you feel like you're rushing to get your homework in on a deadline. I had to, either I submitted the edit even if I didn't like it, or I wouldn't have completed the film challenge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I kind of looked at my film and I was like, I like the way that it is, and I don't know how I'm going to get it under 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I just kind of have to start chopping pieces, even if I really like them. Because
and it's to speak on the editing.
Yeah.
Of course, Movies and Beyond, what you're currently watching right now. We're filming, actually. Mm-hmm. But my point is, it's very hard to edit something that you feel so proud of.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, we have so many great footage, so many great jokes, so many great whatever.
Yeah.
And then you have to think of, oh wait, I gotta cut all this.
Yeah.
I have to select which one's good for the overall podcast episode.
Yeah. They call it the phrase that they use in the industry is "kill your darlings," which is essentially you have to your favorite parts. Sometimes you have to get rid of in order for the whole thing to make it. And after we did all the work of all of production, I didn't want to fail by not submitting it. So I was I just have to chop large pieces that I like. You guys actually saw a few scenes that they won't get to see in the Disability Film Challenge because I have to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. But the good news is, and I was talking about this with Diana Elizabeth Jordan, our co-producer, is that the life of the film extends beyond just this film festival. We can re-edit it. We can, make the sound perfect and make the color perfect, and submit it to other film festivals to kind of continue to get the word out there. And so, yeah. Would I do it again? Would I do the Disability Film Challenge again?
That was gonna be my last question.
Yeah.
Are you willing to do another one of these if the opportunity pops up?
100%. I think yes, but I don't know if I can do it next year. It was really, I mean, I'm somebody who already struggles with like my energy levels. That's a part of like my learning disability, is that getting enough sleep and feeling rested enough is already difficult for me. When you add a project that would be really difficult for anybody, even people who don't struggle with energy issues, or like people who like can just drink coffee and like get away with it. For me,
energy
of course,
drinks.
What'd you say?
Or energy drinks.
Right, exactly. I can't drink caffeine, so that's another thing. But to do that as a person who does struggle with those things is like, I'm still recovering from it, from just the experience of like making the film, and that was already 2 weeks ago. But like, just it's like what the character says. She's like, I just need time, and I need space. Otherwise, things start to shut down. For me, so yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to do it next year, but I think when I do, I'm gonna be able to be more careful about the way that I plan it. We probably won't work in a forest again. Yeah, I think I'll just have a different perspective on what it's like to do something in 6 days. Because it's a whole different game from other things that I've made in the past.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that about does it with all the questions I had. Thank you so much, Hannah Cruz, for joining me on this podcast episode of Movies and Beyond.
Studio audience.
Yes, and a live studio audience. And don't forget, guys, if you want to listen to the podcast on audio version, you can check us out on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. Wait, no, hold on, my bad. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio.
Wow.